Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and our FCS Dynasty and NCAA Football 2006. Today we're taking a look at the nation, doing our Week 11 recap and our Week 12 predictions. Let's get right into it. Sports Illustrated cover. Savannah State, MJ Gator Jr. is on the cover, but they are robbed in the rankings. Latest bowl rankings controversy has Tigers watching from the stands. So let's go ahead and check that out really quick. Believe it. Find out what all the fuss is about in the latest bowl rankings. That is Rice on the cover, and they are number 2 in the bowl rankings currently. Fresno State at number 1, still undefeated on the year, 8-0. Rice has that 1 loss on the season, and Savannah State getting snubbed right there in 3rd place, even though they are ranked number 2 nationally in the coaches poll. Central Michigan and Ball State round out the top 5. And Wyoming, UTEP, New Mexico State, Bryant, and New Mexico round out the top 10. Of course, Bryant getting snubbed as well, since they are ranked 7th in the country and 9th in the bowl rankings. Then Akron, Ohio, Florida Atlantic, William and Mary, another FCS school getting in there, and Nevada. That is the top 15 for the bowl rankings. Let's check out the top 25 polls. Jumping up, Ball State's 61-55 defeat of Akron, who was number 2 in the country, lifts them to number 6 in the latest polls. Let's check it out. Fresno State number 1, Savannah State jumps up to number 2 in the country, and Rice is 3. Central Michigan, Wyoming, Ball State. That was a crazy game, 61-55, unbelievable score. Bryant jumps up to number 7. They're getting some first place votes here as well. UTEP stays at 8. They just beat Towson in Conference USA. Towson is actually having a pretty good season as well. New Mexico State and New Mexico, that's the top 10. And we've got William and Mary ranked number 11 in the country. They just beat, I think it was Hampton, 48-3. So they destroy the Pirates, and they are 8-2 on the season. FAU 9-1 on the year. They just beat Samford, and they also beat Jacksonville 2 weeks ago. Akron drops down 11 spots after losing to Ball State, so a huge drop-off for them. And their national championship game hopes are crushed. Colorado State ranked 14th. Nevada rounds out the top 15. Then we've got Ohio, Tulane, FIU, Army, and Navy drops 15 spots after losing to Tulane. That's an insane drop since Tulane is 7-2 on the season. Eastern Michigan, 21st. Dayton jumps up 2 spots to number 22 in the country. They just beat Northern Iowa, 31-28 in a last-second field goal. Tennessee State jumps up 2 spots as well. They are ranked 23rd. They just beat Northeastern, 41-0. They're 7-1 on the season, and it's looking like Jacksonville, if they can continue winning the rest of their conference matchups, will be taking on Tennessee State in the SEC title game in a rematch. And South Dakota State makes their first appearance, 24th in the country now. They just beat Nicholls State 42-32. And Montana, we see them on the top 25 poll for the 3rd time this season. They jump back up after a 39-9 victory over Villanova. And additional teams receiving votes: Idaho, James Madison, Boise State, UNLV. They both dropped out of the rankings. South Carolina State, another ACC team. That would be great for Savannah State if they were able to get in there and get ranked, because they will be facing them here in a couple weeks. Sam Houston State, Buffalo, Maine, and Furman. And that is the top 25. Let's take a look at the Heisman watch list. One to watch. Holly catches everything that comes his way, including Heisman hype for the Wyoming Cowboys. And there's Lamar Jackson finally in the top 5. He takes over for Robert Minor. MJ Gator Jr. still number 1. Brandon Allen right behind him. Very close in 2nd. He has 27 touchdowns on the season. MJ Gator Jr., of course, has 32. And Jason Holly, he's been on this list all season. 16 touchdowns. Almost 1,200 yards receiving. 78 catches. And his quarterback, Jordan Atkins, 388 yards last week. 4 touchdowns against Western Kentucky. He's got 38 touchdowns on the year. Almost 3,200 passing yards. And Lamar Jackson, 30 total touchdowns, 761 yards on the ground, over 2,500 passing yards. Just an absolute beast, and it's nice to see him on the Heisman watch list finally. So we have 3 freshmen on here. And we have 2 redshirt seniors. So it looks like it's either going to be a senior or freshman going to win the Heisman this year. That'll be very interesting. Award semifinalists. The top candidate, freshman Redding, is one of 12 candidates for the 2005 Walker. That is amazing to see some of our players on these covers. It's really cool. And I hope if Daily Redding is watching this that he does a screenshot of that and keeps that for his own collection. Maxwell Award, we've got 5 freshmen in the lead. Savannah State has MJ Gator Jr. Then we got Brandon Allen, Raul Lozano III, Daily Redding, and Lamar Jackson. And of course Robert Minor's on there, but he's injured again and will miss 2 weeks. Alexander Connor, Jordan Atkins, James Poole, Jeff Carey, Dallas Cole, and Riley Cotton. Of course, we have seen all of these FBS teams in this dynasty at one point or another. That's it for the Maxwell. On to the Bednarik. Rob Orlandi suffered a huge injury. He will be out for probably the rest of the season. I don't know if he's going to be back for a bowl game. That'll be really interesting to see. That's a big loss for the Dayton Flyers defense. Stephen Baker's number 2. Tony Penn, of course, 10 sacks, over 100 tackles, 32 tackles for a loss. Just a beast. Chris Major, he has the most tackles out of all of our schools that we use. He's also got 5 picks, 5 tackles for loss, and 6 forced fumbles to go along with those 84 tackles. Ralph Williams, 8 interceptions. Christian Daniels, 15 sacks, 37 tackles for a loss. Darius Peters, 8 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and a touchdown. He also had a sack. Zane Williams, he's doing everything he can to get the Dolphins into the SEC championship game. Ivan Weaver, Michael Newsom, he's injured for 3 weeks. He's not going to be winning. And that is it for the Bednarik. On to the best quarterback, Lamar Jackson, number 1 currently, which is kind of surprising. Minor has more yards and touchdowns. Connor's 3rd. Owen Black is 5th, even though he has had a really rough season throwing the football, but he's getting it done quite well on the ground. And that is going to be it for our FCS schools. The Walker Award, MJ Gator Jr., Brandon Allen, Daily Redding, Raul Lozano III, all having great seasons. Let's see if we have any more. A.J. Jordan, backup halfback. I mean, technically it's not really a backup. He does get quite a bit of playing time for the Bulldogs, but he has 17 touchdowns as the number 2 halfback. That's crazy. And that's it for our schools. On to the best wide receiver. I'll be shocked if I see any of our guys on here, because if you take a look at these stats, they're just crazy. Look at that. 1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns on 90 catches. That's crazy. And Florida A&M is having a rough year. And that is it. We don't have any of our guys on there at all. Best tight end. There we go. Brahms North. Apparently he's going to be suspended for a game. We'll see that coming up later on in the week when we see South Dakota State take on North Dakota State. See what his suspension is for. Matt Meeks is on there, number 9. Trent Green. Max Hawthorne. Doesn't look like any of our freshman tight ends are going to win this award this year, but at least it's good to see him on there. Offensive line. I'll be very shocked if Dan Williamson does not win this award. 82 pancakes, only 1 sack allowed. Of course, Kenneth Arrington is right there with him. Very close stats. Adam Miller, 82 pancakes, but he's allowed 3 sacks. Then we've got some non-subscriber players, and then Chad Filler, another non-subscriber lineman here. Lance Stevenson, Dan DeBeers, Brandon Red, another non-subscriber player, and another one. And on to the Remington Best Center Award. Gray North, 29 pancakes, 0 sacks allowed. Number 1 guy has 45 pancakes with 2 sacks allowed, so that'll be pretty interesting to see if Gray North can get some more pancakes, trying to boost his numbers a little bit without allowing a sack. He'll probably win that. And then Sebastian Hernandez, another one of our subscriber centers, has not allowed a sack at all this year either. 23 pancakes. And that's it for the Remington. The Lombardi Award. Best defensive lineman. These stats are nuts. And we don't see any of our guys. There we go. Ruben Blueberry's on there. 32 tackles, 14 tackles for a loss, 8 sacks. That's our only player on the defensive line that is on this list. Best linebacker. Tony Penn looks like he's going to win that award with Rob Orlandi's injury. He's not going to catch him. He just has way too many tackles for loss, and sacks. He also has five forced fumbles. And no more linebackers. Very shocking. Stephon Okafor is not on here. Zane Williams, Cy Summers, Austin Bracey. I would expect one of them, at least one or two of them, to be on this list as well, but they are not. The Thorpe Award is just completely filled with our players. Chris Major, #1 right now, and that is due to all those tackles and 6 forced fumbles to go along with 5 picks. Matt Dunlap, he's having a great year for the Delaware State Hornets. Unfortunately for them, their whole team as a whole is just not very good. Ralph William, Bully Cooper, Darius Peters, Marcus Pedersen, Trey Henry III, Chris Numa, my goodness, Tadian Moss, and that is it. So mostly our players. So we had 8 of our own players on this list out of 12. The Lou Groza Award is not going to be won by any of our guys. Of course, we do have Anthony Williams in there, 7 of 8, and 60 of 60 for extra points. But I don't think he's going to win that unless he makes 20 field goals here in the next, 3 weeks. Best punter, we don't see any punters at all. Best return man, Jamar Hicks. I was toying with the idea of putting him on the Adam Vinatieri Award watch list, but I wanted to just keep it as, 5 guys from our subscribers and 5 guys from the rest of the FCS schools. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys want to see Jamar Hicks at least have a chance at winning that award, because it looks like he's going to win this one, so I don't think it would be that big of a deal if he wasn't on the Adam Vinatieri Award. But just let me know your thoughts on that, guys. Darius Mitchell's #2, Zoomer Speed, Mr. Highlight, Chris Numa, LJ Topher. We're going to see a lot of our guys on here. Gloves Malone, who has yet to have an interception, by the way. Malik Higgins and Oliver Vincent's on there as well as the #12 spot. Best coach, South Carolina State, 6 and 2. FAU's coach is #2 and Furman is 3rd. It's very surprising to me that Savannah State's head coach, Seth Maddox, and Bryant's head coach, Scott Goldberg, are not 1 and 2 right now. They're both first-year coaches with first-year FCS schools, and they're undefeated currently in the same conference. So I'm very surprised that they are not in the top 3 at least. Jim Langer is #5 for South Dakota State. They're 7 and 3 on the year so far. A lot of FCS schools in here. Tennessee State's coach, and Raul Lozano finishes up the Best Coach Award watch list at #12 for Cal Poly. He's 7 and 2 on the season. Just got upset by Northern Colorado. That's it for the awards, guys. Let's take a look at the Players of the Week. Being named Player of the Week can't top beating your rival, big man on campus. So Fresno State destroyed San Jose State in their rivalry game, and it looks like Fresno State's going to end up finishing this season undefeated. Let's take a look at the Players of the Week, though. Lamont Dockery, redshirt junior halfback for Jacksonville State. In the loss to Jacksonville, where it was a 70-63 score, he had 364 yards rushing, 6 total touchdowns. That guy was unstoppable. Cy Summers gets Defensive Player of the Week against Delaware State. 4 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, interception, 2 forced fumbles, and a touchdown. He was beasted and feasted. ACC, of course, Cy Summers is on defense. MJ Gator Jr. is the Offensive Player of the Week against Morgan State in their 49-24 victory. He had 164 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 catches for 2 touchdowns and 96 yards as well. The Big Ten, Chris Joseph, Youngstown State, sophomore quarterback, for the Penguins, led a 45-29 victory over Western Illinois. He threw for 476 yards, and he had 5 total touchdowns. Ed Bell, redshirt junior defensive end for the Grizzlies, against Villanova in the 39-9 win. Had 18 tackles, 11 for a loss, 5 sacks, and a forced fumble. He was balling out as well. The Big 12, Andrew Mackey, senior wide receiver for Western Carolina, in their 62-53 win over VMI, had 118 yards receiving and 3 total touchdowns. Zeke Marunde, Defensive Player of the Week for the Big 12. 5 tackles, 1 for a loss, 1 sack, and a touchdown. The Big East, Ricky Gilmore, junior wide receiver for Dartmouth, had 14 receptions for 229 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ben Shelton, senior left end for Yale, and a 40-14 drubbing of Columbia, had 9 tackles, 2 for a loss, a sack, and a fumble recovery. Conference USA, of course, Lamont Dockery, Offensive Player of the Week. Chris Hogan on defense, redshirt junior outside linebacker, and a 14-10 loss to the Phoenix, had 11 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, a sack, forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Independence, Jonathan Harris, senior quarterback for Army, threw for 370 yards, 2 touchdowns. Matt Porter, junior right end out of Northeastern, and a 41-0 loss to Tennessee State at 17 tackles, 4 for a loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. Northeastern is 1-7 on the season. Looks like Porter is their best player, obviously. On to the MAC, redshirt junior quarterback Avery Anderson in their 61-55 overtime victory over the number 2 Akron Zips. He threw for 387 yards, 5 touchdowns. Phenomenal performance. On defense, sophomore outside linebacker Mark Turner for the Maine Black Bears in a 26-20 victory over Hofstra had 6 tackles, interception, and a fumble recovery. Mountain West, Adam Hearn, junior quarterback for the UNLV Rebels, had 306 passing yards and 4 total touchdowns against Eastern Kentucky. A.J. Cunningham for the Wyoming Cowboys, middle linebacker, had 4 tackles, interception, and a fumble recovery against Western Kentucky. On to the Pac-10, Raul Lozano III against Sacramento State, had 142 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, and 69 yards receiving, and a touchdown. Jamar Tuiasosopo, junior left end out of Eastern Washington, against UC Davis, had 5 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, a sack, and a defensive touchdown. On to the SEC, Michael Hines' breakout performance today, well, this week at least, and their 70-63 win over Jacksonville State. He was 14 of 19, 403 yards, 14 carries, 159 yards, 6 total touchdowns. Best performance by far from Michael Hines, and I wish he would do that every single week because he would take over that quarterback spot again from Ryan Golden. On to the defensive side of the SEC, Justin Tate, sophomore left end out of Alabama A&M, in a 27-24 overtime victory over Mississippi Valley State. He had 11 tackles, 7 for a loss, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. The Sun Belt, Will Thompson, redshirt senior quarterback for FIU, threw for 344 yards and 5 touchdowns. On defense for Samford, redshirt senior outside linebacker Derek Watson, in a 35-7 loss to FAU, had 11 tackles, 3 for a loss, 1 sack, 2 picks, and 2 forced fumbles. And the WAC, the last conference in the nation, Cornelius Brown, redshirt junior wide receiver out of Fresno State, against San Jose State, which they won 50-27. He had 6 catches, 117 yards, 3 scores. David Wayne for San Jose State in that loss had 11 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. So he was balling out for his team. Nobody else was doing a whole lot, though. On to the conference standings. It's going to be very interesting. A lot of things were shaken up. A whole bunch of conferences. Dayton on the cover of this one, and that's Dorian Wura. It says Dayton lifts its Big Ten record to 6-0 with a close win over UNI, finding a way. And that was a tough, gritty victory for the Flyers. Came right down to the wire. And we're taking a look at the ACC here. Bryant number 1 and Savannah State number 2, and then right after them, William & Mary and South Carolina State. Florida A&M is actually having a winning season now. They've won a couple games in a row. They just beat NC State, and their quarterback, Seymour, 28 touchdowns, 1 pick. That's ridiculous. But the Atlantic is most likely going to be won by Bryant unless they get tripped up here against Florida A&M, who they take on this week. That should be a good game. See if the Bulldogs can't force some turnovers for the star quarterback, Seymour, for the Rattlers. But if Bryant would lose that game and William & Mary finishes with a win in their conference, I do believe Bryant would still win the Atlantic because they have the tiebreaker over William & Mary. But that'll be interesting to see. And the Coastal could still be won by South Carolina State, technically. Savannah State has 2 more conference games. They'll be taking on New Hampshire this week, though. And then they have South Carolina State and I believe Norfolk State to end the season. I could be wrong on that, but we'll see later on. But South Carolina State, they're having a great year. 6-2 on the season, 4-1 in conference. They get to take on Hampton this week and have a chance at improving their conference record to 5-1. The Big Ten, Dayton is going to win that one, I believe. Their next game, they take on Villanova, and I do have them beating Villanova in this one because they're 3-6. They're just having a really rough time right now, and I don't think they have a shot. That's it for the Big Ten. It's interesting that Southern Illinois is ahead of Montana with a 4-5 record. I love conference play. On to the Big 12, South Dakota State is #1 now since VMI just lost their first conference matchup to Western Carolina. Very dangerous Catamounts team who is still fighting for a bowl berth, which I think if they do get it, that they'll win it. They have a lot of firepower on that offense. And Sam Houston State, they fell big time after being ranked and then getting beat by South Dakota State. But the Jackrabbits, #1 in the Big 12, and it looks like they will probably win the Big 12 North. They could still lose it here. They do take on North Dakota State this week, but the Bison have not fared well in any of their subscriber versus subscriber games, so I'm picking South Dakota State for that one. So they should improve to 6-1, unless we have some sort of crazy upset like Northern Colorado beating Cal Poly. But the Big 12 South has already been clinched by VMI. So in the first season of this dynasty, VMI clinches their division with 3 games remaining in the season. So congratulations to VMI, the Cadets, on advancing to the Big 12 title game. The Big East is still winnable by anybody. Look at these records. This is probably the most insane conference in the nation. Everybody still has a chance at a bowl game too, which is still crazy. I mean, Penn and Cornell probably won't get there, but they still got a shot, and that's all that matters. But other than the Pac-10, the Big East is the craziest conference. Conference USA, whole lot of good teams here, but only the top 4 have a shot at the Conference USA championship game. So James Madison looks like they're going to go to the championship game, and they will be taking on Rice, UTEP, or Tulane in that game. I don't want to be anybody that faces Rice again because that game with North Dakota State was just so bad. We could not stop their quarterback, Howell, at all. Army 7-2 on the year, Navy 6-2, and the other independent schools 1-7 and 1-9. My goodness. On to the MAC. Ohio, #1 in the MAC, which is really good for Savannah State because that was their biggest win of the season so far. But the East can still be won by Akron, I believe. And the West is still up in the air. Central Michigan or Ball State's going to come away with that one. Possibly Eastern Michigan, we'll see. But this conference is pretty crazy too. On to the Mountain West, New Mexico and Colorado State still fighting for it. Wyoming and UNLV still have an outside chance of winning the conference. Which, again, crazy stat. UNLV was 0-5 to start the season. And they have won 4 straight. They're taking on Murray State this week. I think they're going to win that one as well. So that would improve their conference record to 5-2. And they would be 5-5 on the season. So to be 0-5 on the year and come back and get a bowl berth out of that and possibly win your conference, I don't know if that's ever been done before. Please, somebody in the comment section, let me know if that's ever been done. And the Pac-10, the craziest conference in all of college football. Cal Poly is tied with San Diego, both 5-1 on the season in conference play. San Diego, of course, 3 of their losses were non-conference. They're 5-4 on the season. And these top 5 schools, all of our schools, still have a chance at the Pac-10 title. It's outrageous. I mean, Northern Colorado could win this. If Cal Poly loses the rest of their conference games, Northern Colorado wins them all. If everything falls right, Northern Colorado still has a chance at winning it. That's just so crazy to me. But Southern Utah, I don't think they're going to win it because they're going to be taking on Cal Poly this week, and I'm pretty sure Cal Poly is going to make them throw in the towel there in the first half probably. But of course I did think that about Northern Colorado and Cal Poly, and look how that turned out. So who knows? I have no answers for this conference anymore. I'm just talking out my backside right now. On to the SEC. Tennessee State #1 still, and Jacksonville #2. There's only 2 schools in this conference with winning records, surprisingly. Well, at least everybody has a victory now. The East has already been won by the Tigers, so congratulations to them. We will be seeing them in the SEC championship game. The biggest question is, will we be seeing them against Jacksonville? The Dolphins will be traveling to take on the Alabama A&M Bulldogs this week. Now, if Jacksonville wins that game, they have won the SEC West, and no matter what happens the rest of the season, they will be taking on Tennessee State in the championship game. So hopefully that happens. The Sun Belt could still be won by FIU, Georgia Southern, or Florida Atlantic. FAU 9-1 on the year, FIU 7-1, undefeated in Sun Belt play. Everybody has a win in that conference now. On to the WAC, Fresno State. They'll be taking on Boise State this week. That's a big one. Now, if Fresno State loses, we're going to see a new #1 in the nation, and that would most likely be Savannah State. So that'll be very, very intriguing. That's it for the conference standings, guys. That's it for taking a look at the nation. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the recap from our previous week and then our predictions for this upcoming week. On to the recap. I predicted Bryant would beat Delaware State, and they did, 73-7. Jacksonville at Jacksonville State. I picked JU to win it, and they did not disappoint. It was a wacky finish. They were able to recover an onside kick. Their own kicker recovered it, and they were able to win that game on a Michael Hines to Deshaun Harris touchdown. And that was just one of the best games of the season, in my opinion. Game number 3, Dayton, #24 in the nation, traveled to UNI to take on the Panthers. And I picked Dayton to win that game. They did, 31-28 in a nail-biter. Kicked a field goal as time expired. That was a great game. Game number 4, South Dakota State traveled to take on the Nicholls State Colonels. I had the Jackrabbits winning that one, and they did by 10. Game 5, Morgan State traveled to #3, Savannah State. Obviously, I picked the Tigers to win that one, and they did as well, 49-24. Game number 6, Portland State traveled to take on the San Diego Toreros. I had the Toreros winning that one, and they did, 46-38. Portland State is definitely a formidable foe in the Pac-10. A lot of upset wins this season against our schools, and I'm looking forward to what they do in the rest of this dynasty. It's going to be interesting. Game 7, North Dakota State traveled to McNeese State. I had the Cowboys winning that one, and North Dakota State's offense exploded in the second half. Zoomer's speed was absolutely ridiculous in that game. He had 5 carries, over 100 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Game number 8, Sacramento State traveled to Cal Poly to take on the Mustangs. I picked the Mustangs to win, and they did, 77-10, and they just played that entire game angry after the upset loss to Northern Colorado. Game number 9, Eastern Washington traveled to take on the UC Davis Aggies. I had the Eagles winning that one, but UC Davis had other plans. They won it 31-28 with a late field goal. That was a good game as well. Game number 10, Northern Colorado traveled to Southern Utah to take on the struggling Thunderbirds, and the Northern Colorado Bears won that game 17-10 and get one step closer to being bowl eligible. They've got 2 games left, Portland State and Northern Arizona. So that would be amazing if the Bears could get into the bowl season. But our final game of Week 11 was VMI taking on Western Carolina in the Catamounts house. I had VMI winning that one. They had not lost a Big 12 game yet, but Western Carolina, very explosive team, and they were able to pull out the victory, 62-53, a very high-scoring affair. That is it for our Week 11 recap. Let's take a look at the Week 12 predictions. Game number 1, Northern Arizona travels to take on the UC Davis Aggies. I got the Aggies winning that one. Northern Arizona's been pretty bad this season, and I think the Aggies might actually get their offense going. Who knows? That'll be nice if Owen Black is on track for once. He's very inconsistent. Game number 2, San Diego travels to take on Idaho State. I do have the Toreros winning this one. I think it'll be closer than everyone thinks it'll be. Idaho State has played pretty well in some of the games, but I do think it'll be close, but a win for the Toreros. Game number 3, VMI travels to Southeastern to take on the Lions. I have VMI winning that one. Southeastern has no depth. Their team is just terrible, and I think that'll be an easy victory for the Keydets. Game number 4, Florida A&M travels to take on the 7th-ranked Bryant Bulldogs. I have the Bulldogs winning that one. I do think that might be a close game as well. Florida A&M has one of the best offenses in the country. Their quarterback is outstanding. They just don't have a very good record. Game number 5, Jacksonville travels to take on the Alabama A&M Bulldogs. And with a victory there, the Jacksonville Dolphins would clinch their division, and they would be facing the Tennessee State Tigers in a rematch in the SEC Championship game. I really hope that happens. So I'm going to pick Jacksonville to win this game. Game number 6, Southern Utah travels to take on the Cal Poly Mustangs. I got the Mustangs winning this one. I don't think it's going to be like Northern Colorado versus Cal Poly. And I think Alexander Connor's going to have a much better game this time. The next game, North Dakota State travels to take on the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, who are 24th in the nation. I have the Jackrabbits winning that one. North Dakota State has been awful in the subscriber versus subscriber matchups, and I just think it's going to continue in this game. Game number 8, Portland State travels to take on the Northern Colorado Bears. I got the Bears winning this one. They want to become bowl eligible. I do think it's going to be very close. Portland State has been pretty good against our schools this season, and I think that's going to continue. Game number 9, 22nd ranked Dayton Flyers travel to take on the Villanova Wildcats in a Big Ten matchup. Dayton already has the Big Ten wrapped up. I think they're going to win this one as well. Our final game of the week, New Hampshire travels to take on the 2nd-ranked Savannah State Tigers. I think this is going to be a very close game. Savannah State's defense has struggled. New Hampshire is one of the best teams in the FCS, not due to record, but their overall team rating. They have a lot of depth, and I do think it's going to be very close and one of the biggest tests of the season for the Tigers. But that is going to be it for our Taking a Look at the Nation Week 11 recap and Week 12 predictions, guys. I hope to see your predictions in the comment section below and in our Discord channel. If you're not there yet, get in there. I look forward to seeing everybody in there. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you guys probably Tuesday with our next football game. Take it easy, guys.